Alright, hello everybody, this is Kerberos coming at you with a new deck. It's been quite some time since I've made a deck video, and I'm kind of looking forward to it. I've been wanting to do this for some time now, and I finally got the time today, so made a deck and I'm going to show it to you guys. Now before we get started, it's actually not a brand new deck. This is a remake of one of my older decks called March of the Lieutenants. Some of you guys might remember this from back on Chaotic TV. I made this deck. It turned out really good and worked really well, so I kind of updated it a bit with some new Alliance Unraveled cards. So yeah, here we go. First up we have Kepian with a Sun Chariot of Kensep. Now the reason for that, of course, is pretty obvious. I mean, it's for giving him fire. I mean, that's what it does. Now Kepian's in this deck mostly because it uses all the lieutenants. That was my idea of the deck in the first place. But he makes a really good frontline warrior because his stats will go up by 40, even his energy. Right? So that puts his energy to 95 right off the bat. I don't have to do anything for that, not even a Mujic counter. It's pretty amazing. So next up we have Ivena, right? The Overworld Lieutenant, and she's got Kaibon's Mech Blade. That gives 40 power and 5 energy. So just kind of a bit of a boost, because her stats won't go up at all with this. So she needs kind of a push, per se. It's also nice to get a little bit of energy out of it. Next we have a Kepian again with Sun Chariot of Kensep. Same deal as the first one. Next we have Naivena, the Underworld Lieutenant, with a Mugis Tuning Fork. And this is because your deck plays... we have one Underworld Mujic in it. So, I mean, it kind of need it to help play some more Mujics, because as you can see, both Kepians don't actually have, or as you saw, you can't really see right now, but both Kepians have 0 Mujic counters, right? So, moving on, we have, I don't know how to pronounce this one's name, I'm going to say Jor, right, the Mepedian Lieutenant, and she comes in real handy with the Swift and Range ability, because I mean, Swift 4, Range 4 is pretty impressive, right? And she gets a Mepedian Bullet Flute. Alright. At least I think it's a she. Could be a he. I can't really tell. Can never tell with the Mepedians. Last up, we have Grant Kai, the Mepedian General. I absolutely love this card. As soon as it came out, it's like the only card I've absolutely loved. Found nothing wrong with him. And simply because you use every tribe, right? So on your turn you get all those nice bonuses that he has. And then he's got a weightless energy vessel just to keep those nasty cannon of casualties away. Alright, so moving on to Mujics, we have, to start off, we have Searing Symphony. Now Searing Symphony is pretty nice because with all these new creatures with lots and lots of elements and people adding elements to them all the time, right, you can usually get 20 or 30 damage out of it at once. Right, and if you want, in the location deck, you could put something like the Stronghold Mourn, right, which gives all creatures all elements, and then it'll deal 40 no matter what, which is pretty sweet for one cost. Next up, we have my personal favorite, Fighter's Fanfare, right? Just redirects attacks, right? I mean, can't go wrong there, right? Attack and ability and all, not just the damage. Oh yeah. Deals its damage to the target engaged creature of your choice. I'm sorry. So it does only do the damage. The ability still goes through to your creature. So remember that when using it, if you use it. Next up we have Jig of Reinforcement. Now this is mostly because multiple effects, but later in the deck you will see why this is in here. In fact, I'll bring it back up again when it does. Right. Then I have 2 Harmonics of Waters, simply because if you notice, Kepian has water, but Ivena doesn't, and I think it's a nice boost to Ivena if she has water for some of the attacks in the attack deck. And lastly, we have Illusion Glissando. It's a 0-cost Mujic that allows you to relocate Mirage locations, and again, you'll see why that's in there in a few seconds, because here is the location deck. First up, we have 2 Hunter's Perimeters. This is just so you cycle through your location deck a little bit faster. And if you happen to engage Grant Kai or Jor, I mean, you get a boost. of invisibility surprise. Then we have 2 gardens. Right, the garden gives all creatures in combat, all creatures water. So rather than using your harmonics of water on Ivana, you can you don't have to use anything. It just happens. Next we have Ropashok Chime Grids. This is just for getting more and more music counters. That's always awesome. And you really want to give these to either Ivana or Nivena, right? So that you can use their abilities more. Now we have Gorm's Briefing, because you have 4 tribes, right? A 4-tribe deck. You get 20 energy and 20 to each stat. I'm not really too worried about the stats, but the energy is really, really nice. Lastly, we have the North Range High Ground. Now, this is like big in the deck, right? This is the reason those 2 Hunter's Perimeters are in there. This is the reason the Illusion Glissando's in there. This is the reason the Jig of Reinforcement is in there. And what happens is when this comes up, right, on your deck, and you put it down as a Mirage location, throw it on Ivana or one of the Capians, preferably Ivana if she's still around, right? And you can move it around with Illusion Glissando if you need to, right? Shouldn't have to. But then Jig of Reinforcements, right? Where is it? Here we go. Jig of Reinforcements, right? You get all 4 abilities off of that, right? It's like one super music rather than just a regular music. Becomes really handy on the North Range. Now we're going to go through the attack deck. We have, first off, 2 Valor Continuums. You don't really use Capian's Courage at all, right? So you might as well use it with these. They're awesome 10 damage, 0 build point cards. Then we have Unbalancing Charge, kind of the same deal as the Valor Continuums, right? Flame Bloom, right? Just because we needed some 0 build points, and they give a nice heal and increase to Wisdom. Flash Warp, right? Just 0 build point, 10 damage. Same deal as the Flash Warp with Quick Exit. Consuming Flame, since all your I was going to put Flood Force in here, but because these guys will always have fire, right? Because these 2 have Sun Chariots and Ivana just has it. It's better to have that because Ivana doesn't always have water. Outwit, because they're all going to have high power and Wisdom, and they all always have fire. Smart Smack, again, because they're always going to have high power and Wisdom. Flaming Coals, because they're both, if you need to, you can use Harmonics of Water, Harmonics of Water for the water element on Ivana, and then Ivana can play this full blast. And then lastly, Interthink, and I had a really it was kind of an interesting decision between Interthink and some other 1 build point cards, but I went with Interthink because you can give Ivana a Music counter, and then that's 20 heal, or you can give Nivena the Music counter, and that's 20 damage, right, depending on how many tribes you have left. Or if you even need to, you can give it to Jor and get another jump out of her, right? So in the early game, what you want to do is you want to start playing, right? Play. On your first turn, you want to use Jor's ability and use it on one of these 3, right? And just jump back and hit one of their weakest creatures, or one of their highest music counter creatures, right? If you have to, hit like a Kaor, right, to get rid of some of their music ability in the early game. But good creatures to hit would be like Nazarins, Andre Heps, Lore, right, things like that. Copond. Then, kind of in the mid game, when you start running out of more of your musics, like Harmonics of Water, right, Fighter's Fanfare, right, when you run out of those, Searing Symphony, when you run out of most of those, this is when you want to kind of pull Ivana back and use her to defend, right, because chances are you're not going to have your water anymore, right, so use your Kepians to attack now, right. In the early game you want to use Ivana, right, because Ivana's a powerhouse in the very beginning, right, and then she kind of loses, you use your Harmonics of Water, right, you run out of those, and now she doesn't have water, and it kind of makes her a weak link. So just back her up, send out your Kepians, right? Let Ivana kind of defend. Then in the end game, to finish him off, you just want to keep hammering him with Kepian, right? Kepian is a very, very powerful creature in this deck, and if you play right, you can just keep using Ivana as a healer and just keep hounding them. It's so much fun. I love this deck. I need to play it online more. The only problem with this deck would be that it is extremely susceptible to jump decks, right? Things like Swift and Range. I mean, it has it itself, right? And if they get to go first, right, and they have it, right, you can't stop it with this deck. I mean, if you want, right, I don't have it, but you could replace Searing Symphony, right, with, what's it called? Song of Stasis, right? And you could use it on their jumper, right, before they attack, and then they can't move and hit you. But I just don't have a Song of Stasis, so that's a good idea. Other than that, this deck is extremely powerful. It really doesn't have many weaknesses because it doesn't rely too heavily on one thing. Like, it doesn't rely heavily on element attacks, it doesn't rely heavily on stat attacks, and it doesn't rely heavily on music. So it can take a little bit of anything, right? Not too many decks dish out many things at once, right? This thing takes a little bit of everything. So, I mean, if you do happen to come up against a jump deck, you're in a lot of trouble, and you better hope you have packed a Song of Stasis rather than a Searing Symphony. But otherwise, this deck is extremely powerful, and I hope you guys have fun playing and modifying it yourself. And this is Curb, signing off.